everybody. Look, we come right back now. Happy Thursday. Usually I have to click us back one by one. Welcome, everybody in the GovCon community. Welcome to another episode of GovConHacks, joining you live on Thursday, where we break down the complexities of government contracting into actionable insights to help you win more business. So I'm Ashley, if you're new here, your host, and I'm joined with my co-host, Natasha Velez.
Hi, guys.
And we have Angela joining us again, Angela Seymour with the South Carolina APEX Accelerator. And if you are new here, Angela has been with us before, but I brought her back specifically because of her strong experience in the SLED space. So our last course, or our last podcast rather, on this topic was very 101 level. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper this time to marketing, and hopefully what we're going to talk about today is going to benefit you not only in government contracting but also in business in general. So we sometimes forget that growing our business, there's more than one way. A solicitation is just one way, and a lot of these tips and tricks we're going to go over today work in multiple sectors, whether you're in the public, you're in the private, both. If you're like me and you have 1 foot here and 1 foot over there, a lot of these tips can be sort of trade-offs and utilized in other areas. But I want to kick off very simply for those of you that may be new to business, or those of you that may have been at this a while, to bring you back to the basics, because sometimes we get carried away working on our business and not necessarily in our business rather, and we don't necessarily take that step back to work on our business, right? And I think we're all guilty of that once in a while. So, right?
All the time.
All the time. Every Friday when I come up for air, I'm like, oh, look at that. I have a whole other task list. Okay, so I'm sorry.
I think that taking a day to not only work on your business, but also educating yourself. So I had this thing where I try to watch a YouTube video while I do my makeup, and I'm just listening. Yeah. So just learning, educating myself, because I don't know everything about marketing, and I love sales and everything, but I don't know everything, and it's evolving all the time. So I think that I try to take that time to listen and learn new ways that I can go about it. And it doesn't always have to just be GovCon.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, it's like, how do they do it in GovCon? Like, we are in the business of people. So
we are, exactly.
So it doesn't change that much. All right. You're selling the same products. There's still people. It's just, there's some regulations and compliance, but when it comes to sales is sales across the board. Do you find that to be the same, Angela?
Absolutely.
I do. Absolutely. I find that the funny part is my late husband, he was a buyer for a private company and I was a buyer for the county. And I always said, but the difference is when you want, $100,000 software system, you could just go buy it, where I have to go through 8 hoops just to get there. So it's just knowing that I have the right person that I'm turning to in the process, that, it's somebody that put themselves in front of me and said, hey, this is why our software works best.
We were in the green room a little before the episode, and, we were talking about, just the difference and the similarities. And someone said, you have to be ready for no, right? And I said, but what if you could? What if you had the relationship with them that you could ask why, right? Because you don't really want to harass them. Right. But is it reasonable to follow up next quarter? So before we get into the weeds, let me back up for just a moment. Marketing, by definition, guys, is the process of promoting, selling, and distributing a product or service, right? It is the activity that we take on social media. It is our website. It is our capability statement. It is our LinkedIn business page. It is, what else is it, ladies?
Our brochures, our slide deck, our briefings, our meetings.
Professionalism of our proposals.
The way you dress.
Our sources.
The professionalism of yourself.
the way you speak,
Right.
the way you present yourself. I mean, everything is a sale.
Right. And I mean, in the context of government contracting, like there are a little bit, capability statement, for example, isn't used literally anywhere else except for in the federal space.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Angela, how many capability statements did you see?
Zero.
Right.
Zilch.
I've never had anyone that SLED tell me, can I see your capability statement?
No.
Never.
Right.
Not once.
Right.
No.
So it's not very typical, but something that I'm sure did happen, and confirm or deny or tell us some stories if you have them, is folks that you bought from probably took the time to get to know you a little bit, right? Because the first step to marketing is targeting. Not everybody needs to know about your product or service, right? Think about when you run a Google ad, or a Facebook ad, or whatever those of you in the audience might be familiar with. You have to target your market. You're not going to be selling your office desk to a housewife in rural Montana.
Right.
You're going to be targeting maybe a CEO in New York City that has an office to put it in, right? So thinking about reverse engineering, who is the targeted market for your product or service, and then reaching them with that message.
And knowing the right people to get through. Like I said before, that, procurement isn't going to be the end all be all as far as the decision makers. But if you get to know them, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember you when they hear about somebody, maybe they're in a meeting and they say, hey, I need a desk. And you have a working relationship with them. I had an office furniture person that was out of Atlanta, and I spoke to this person every other week. We had a standing phone call every other week. Did we only talk about their stuff? No, we talked about other things, but that stood out in my mind because I got to know this person. And when I knew that somebody said, hey, I need 5 office chairs for this grant, I need them in 2 weeks because I got to get it billed in a month. Right. That's exactly when I was like, hey, let me have you speak to so-and-so, because I already had that existing relationship with them.
Building that relationship. I like that. So I think one of the things we also talked about in the green room is letting go of all these preconceived notions of how you need to show up. Because I think sometimes we overthink things.
Yes.
And we get in our own way.
We do.
Had this concept, this conversation earlier of like, you're selling to people. Sales is a natural, organic process. And it feels forced. It doesn't come out well. So it's almost like
if it sounds scripted and unnatural. Yeah.
Right.
We live in a world where everyone's very like ChatGPT, very like everyone's very robotic, and no one's an individual anymore. So that's almost your core capability now. But you having that organic conversation and building that relationship, and how that stands in your mind of how people, like my husband always tells me, people don't remember what you do. They remember how they felt about you.
Right.
That is very true, especially in sales and in marketing.
Yeah.
That's
I agree 100%. And when I work with my clients at Apex Accelerator, I always start with an icebreaker. I tell them my background and I go, well, so what does that mean? And I said, that means it's kind of like the federal space to me is like building a fire truck. I was allowed to bid them. I knew that they were $1.25 million for a new ladder truck. I knew what turtle tile was, but they wouldn't let me run the hose. They wouldn't let me play with the lights, and they certainly weren't letting me drive it. But it's that war.
Great analogy. I love it.
Just get in there and say, wow, I feel really good because I have a relationship, because she's got a good sense of humor. So
That's good. That's good.
And, once you do, and it doesn't always start that way, think of those of you, your repeat customers, right? I have to say more than half of my business in 2024 was customers who came back for more business, right? And they always say, and I hope I don't botch this, guys, keep me honest here, but your best next customer is your last customer.
Yeah.
Wait, is that how it goes?
Yeah, it's true. It's
Guys,
true.
audience members, if that's how it goes, let me know. Confirm or deny, drop it in the comments.
Right.
I feel like I jumbled it. But
or
if
log it in.
you're sure that's how it goes, I'm okay with it.
Well,
But I
because
think
they're not only they know your capabilities, but they also refer you.
right. When you do good work, you do get referrals. And thinking about those of you who are working your first contract right now, for example, maybe you are sharing an office with a PM or an end user. And over time of sharing that space and working on this project, you chat around the water cooler, you have your ear to the ground, you maybe get to know about other projects or other pain points that exist in that agency that might help you kind of branch off. And I know I'm kind of getting a little bit out on left field, but there's so many different ways to use marketing as the first icebreaker, essentially. So it's very important to make that good first impression. So I always say work backwards, right? Start with what you're selling, work backwards. What's your buyer persona? Now, this is sort of where at the federal level, at least, the nerd in me comes out and the market research, right? Because the best way to predict what the government's going to do is look at what they've done, right? 70% of what's bought is bought over and over and over again. Is that also true at the state level, Angela?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, in the green room, we were talking about the existing folks and, dethroning the king. Who's in place right now? You have to get to know who's in place, who's selling those pencils, who's selling whatever it is, that paper. You have to get to know who they are, so you know what their pricing is. What do they have? What can you offer that's above and beyond? Maybe you can offer next day shipping, something along those lines that they're not getting. But the only way you're going to get to know that is sitting down with that end user, the central stores manager, the facilities director, the IT director. What are you doing? What are you guys buying? What kind of problems are you encountering, and how can I fix them?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think one of the differentials from federal to state, I don't know that we spoke about this one, but you know how in federal, once a solicitation's on SAM, you really can't talk with the contracting officer about it. You can just, put it in a Q&A. That's not necessarily the case for a SLED opportunity. So if there's an opportunity out, It is?
It is the same. It is the same.
Once Q&A. Yeah, there's a Q&A period.
Yeah. You can ask period.
But we have these things where I'll contact someone in the SLED space and I'll ask about information and they will give it to me, especially when they're finding that no one's responding to it.
Yeah.
And then I find that they also will reach out to you even more so because no one's responding to it. Because let's be real, everyone's focusing on SAM.gov.
Invite you to bid.
Yeah, so they invite you to bid. They're like, hey, listen, if you're interested on this, can you also look at this and this and this? So I find that they're more helpful, honestly, in the SLED space, and they're more willing to speak with you. Not necessarily influencing the acquisition, but giving you a lot more information that you probably wouldn't have been able to receive in the federal space because you're a little more worried in the federal. But with the SLED, I find it's a little more of a relaxed environment. And they support you a little more, and they're able to kind of speak to you and kind of help you with that. So I've had that where, I'll reach out and be like, hey, can you give me this information? And if there's anything else like it, and they'll go above and beyond and try to support you in that. I find that so much more helpful than when I do it in federal space.
I absolutely agree. I tell my clients when they're looking at advertisements, I said, here's the thing in locals government, particularly, since that's what my background is. If somebody's buying things for emergency services, maybe they're buying vehicles. They're buying all the vehicles. They're not just buying one vehicle and the other buyer is buying another vehicle. They're buying them all. So they're going to know who to talk to in those spaces. So if you have something you see out on a local advertisement and you see a buyer's name, reach out to them. And what I tell my clients is when you're reaching out to them, say, hey, I saw XYZ out on whatever website. I would love an opportunity to speak to you about future solicitations that are similar. They know that you're not going to ask them about that solicitation because as soon as you say that, they're going to ignore you and say, just drop a question. But if it's a future solicitation similar, it gives you an opportunity to sit down in front of a program manager, a facilities director, an IT director, whoever, an elected official. Elected officials are probably some of the most finicky folks. So those are the people that if you have something that's in that area, that's the space that you're going to want to really bust into.
That makes perfect sense. And I will say the disclaimer there is it is typically more difficult. I mean, that's sort of like a perfect world in government contracting. I meant the federal level, I meant the federal level, to where you get to that end user that quickly. So SLED in so many different ways can be a much easier sandbox to play in for a newer business entering the market. And they don't often include all of the hairy rules that, like limitations of subcontracting at the federal level. So those of you who are solopreneurs might find more opportunity there, and they're a little bit more willing to talk to you. At the federal level, I find it's very much follow process. So, and it also depends on your industry, right? It's a lot easier to market professional services than it is, like doctors and physical therapists, and it's kind of a little bit of it's a whole different message, it's a different timeline. It just looks different. So going into numbers and metrics, Natasha, from your financial perspective, what can we expect to spend as a marketing budget? So a lot of the things that we're talking about here today can be done in all sectors, but like how much of what these companies are bringing in should they be investing in marketing, whether that's time or money at this point?
8%,
depending on where they are in their business.
8% of your revenue should go into sales and marketing. That includes your business development people, though. So that includes labor. It's not just materials. But 8% of what your sales is normally the metric of what people are spending in regards to getting that investment back and then creating an ROI. So, that's money, right? Like you don't want to just do blind sales. You want to create a return of investment. So you want to kind of say, all right, this is all the money and all the time, and money, time is money, and put it all together in a nice little spreadsheet and say, how long is it going to take me to earn all this money back? All and tenfold, right? How am I going to get that 8% of all the money and time I'm spending on this sales? And if you're not getting it back within 3 to 4 or 5 years, then you're not doing it right. You have to put metrics. You have to put KPIs, what we call like key performance metrics, right? Because you have to check yourself. As a small business, your money is very limited. So you can easily get through it. I mean, let's be real. Like, I find like I must spend so much money and I don't even know where it goes anymore, but it's like software here, business cards there, event here, travel there, cup of coffee there, and it adds up. And so, does it like equate
especially that foo coffee you drink?
Oh God.
If it doesn't equate to a sale, then you're wasting your time or you're not doing the market research that Ashley talks about so much to get, I don't even know where the hell you are, to get to the pathway where you need to be. You could be selling to the wrong people.
Right.
Yes. Or you could be delivering the wrong message to the right person, which is almost worse, right? Because especially in such a competitive landscape like the government is, your first impression means something. And I actually just, while I was waiting for you ladies to come on, somebody had shared a capability statement.
Oh God, I thought of that.
One of these river contractors had posted one, and I kindly critiqued it. Not leading with your set asides, communicating value, right? If you send your marketing slick to somebody that buys widgets and yours is not a widget, I mean, what do you think your response rate's going to be, right? So if you don't know the agencies that buy what you sell first, how are you going to measure your marketing ROI later? because every industry looks different. It can sometimes take 8 to 12 touch points.
Yeah.
For a business developer to make traction in an agency. And usually it happens a whole lot faster if you go through the small business person, by the way, just tit for tat. And follow process when one exists, right? Only leave it to the federal government to have a process to receive your marketing, right? But they do in often cases. And if you know nothing about your agencies, and this is even worse when you don't know what you're selling, right? Because if you don't know what you're selling, you certainly can't know who's buying it.
That happens.
So you have the whole opportunity here. You have to evaluate sort of what out of that is capturable and use that as your measurable. Capture the business that you have the highest likelihood, prioritize those offices and those humans, execute your proven sales process, and that ROI will come a lot faster than you just email spamming anyone who will listen.
Well, and how many emails do you get a day? How many emails?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, how many times are you reading an email from front to back? I was always infamous with my late husband. I'd say, I'm listening every third word you're telling me. I can pick up the conversation on every third word. I don't have to listen to them all, just every third word. And that's going to be the same thing with an email, especially if it's a marketing email. If it's
they get creative with those emails, though. Have you noticed?
Oh my gosh.
Some of them's like, you can't afford to wait any longer. I'm like, I can't. They try to scare tactics.
You're talking to procurement people. We can afford all the time in the world to wait. So.
And I got to tell you, if it's any more than 3 sentences, the federal government isn't reading it, especially not a contracting officer. So we actually have a course that we're going to be launching this quarter that goes over sort of who's who in the government. So stay tuned for that. If you're not sure, who would be my end user? What's different about them versus a contracting officer?
Right.
What's a small business liaison do? So we're going to kind of go through that in a little bit more detail, far more detail than we have time for on a podcast. So definitely keep an eye out for that if that's information that you want more of. However, each of these personas, essentially they have different needs. Like, for example, I'm in IT. You don't go to an IT project manager with your capability statement saying, look at me, I'm a woman-owned small business. You go to them saying, what keeps you up at night, right? Like, what are your issues? What are you facing and what's costing you time in your role? Whatever their sort of pain points happen to be, do more listening than you do talking, right? And you can't really get to that phase of listening to provide a solution until you've broken the ice with the marketing.
Right.
So just to kind of differentiate those two, that's why your marketing assets are so important, because they're the face of your company. It's oftentimes the first impression a buyer, a prime contractor is going to get of you. So, don't make it look like a third grader did it, please.
In what you were saying too, at the local level too, remember these folks are on a limited budget. So what you have to offer to them, if you can go in there and say, listen, I know that you're paying $50,000 for this copy service. I can give it to you for $35,000. They are going to be very happy. They will be very happy. When I was working for the county, I saved them a lot of money because I wouldn't settle for status quo. And remember, there's going to be a buyer that's not going to settle for status quo just because you're in there.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the audience. We've only got a few minutes left. What stops you? Because we were talking about this in the green room. A lot of you know how to do this. We've talked about it before, but you don't. So what's the barrier between talking and learning and actually doing and following through? So what's your stopping point? If you have one, please let us know in the chat. Maybe it's fear of rejection. Maybe I'm an introvert, so I know my reasons. We need to get out of our own way though in 2025. So tell us what your reasons are. We're happy to help you overcome them. What are your reasons, Natasha?
Oh, I don't have any.
Nothing stops you from marketing ever.
No. If I could talk all day, I would, girl.
Not even technology?
No, that's what I have you for. So where I lack I think this is best said as, I used to not be able to move forward because I didn't know, or I didn't have it. There's only so many hours in the day, right? I have learned, and this is something that you have to just go through sometimes, that I don't need to know it all. I just need to know people that do.
Or know where to find it. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, we don't know everything.
Yeah,
We have experience, and we know where to find the things that we don't know is the good news, and we can interpret.
You get real resourceful, especially with your business, because that's your baby.
Yeah.
But
Because you want to solve your customers' problems, and that's essentially what it's about.
But you also have to solve your own.
Yeah.
You also have to solve your own. Sometimes you don't get out there because you have this preconceived notion that A, you're not good enough, B, they're thinking about you, you didn't wear the right clothes, you don't look rich enough, you don't look successful enough, you don't look like you have it. What if you fumble? What if you say the wrong thing? What if your capability statement's not good enough? Your proposal pricing. We have so many what ifs. That stops you from actionable.
Everything. It stops you from
everything.
You can drown in what ifs.
And it's the motto that I lead every day of my life is you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. I will take a no before I take a nothing. I want to hear a no. And if you didn't say no, I'm coming back. If you didn't say no, it's not a no. It just means maybe a little later.
Right. It means I'm going to check in next quarter and see if anything's changed, right? Now, level 2 to that is being able to be like, Natasha, let me ask you, what's stopping you? Is it a budget constraint or something else? I can kind of identify if there's another person in the agency that maybe needs to know me and trust me. I mean, if you have that sort of openness, even better. But a simple follow-up next quarter is cool too. Like, just because they tell you no, that just really means not right now.
Not right now. Yeah.
Right.
And remember too, it's about timing. Because, if you're trying to get ahead of the game, you've got, maybe the no is they don't have the money right now. But if you talk to them, just after this, the new fiscal year starts, maybe at quarter 2, and you're like, I've got this thing. I think it's fantastic. I think that you would find, and they go, okay, great. Let me put it in my budget next time. Yeah. So it's the timing. The no just might be the timing.
Timing could even just be like, you're in the wrong. Know when the government spends. Again, market analysis, right? I had someone that was literally like, why am I not winning anything? I'm like, bro, it's Christmas.
Right. Why are there no solicitations?
Right. They won't care till January. So it's just like, also know the timing. And know how the fiscal year is played out to the government and when they spend money and when, those peaks and lows, right? We know that Christmas time is a slow season. We just finished spending. You're a little late to the game. It's okay. It comes back around. So,
and I always tell my clients too, the same thing. I said in local government, spending is from July to June. So, come July, the floodgates open. They've been waiting all year long. They've been waiting since April, May. Oh, my budget ran out. I got to hurry up and get money. So July, August, September, October, beginning in November, it slows down because of the holidays, and it won't pick back up again until probably mid-February, because January they're putting budgets together. But that means if you have something you want to sell them, you've got to talk to them before January so they can put it in the budget for the next year.
Right.
Right. And that also works the same with grant funded situations too. Like it all has to go through the budget. Think about how it works with, higher ed, and the budget cycle is very important. And if you don't know that budget cycle, you could be wasting a lot of time, right? You also have to make sure you get in before the cycle, like Angela alluded to make sure that you're worked into that budget for the following year. So having frequent check-ins, with your prospects is always advisable. I know when I started out in this industry in a sales role, it was sort of company policy when I was outreaching and making my calls and doing my follow-ups that there had to be a follow-up recorded every X amount of days and a disposition. And if the answer was no that day, there was always a why, and it was required. But what it did was it got me in good habits, and it got me into the habit of listening and asking the question, why? right?
Do
And,
like
sometimes you don't really come out and say why. You might say, oh, is it a budget constraint? Or, you kind of ask leading questions to get to the root cause, right? And then you gauge, all right, then I'll definitely, is it okay if I follow up with you in 30 days or 90 days or whatever the appropriate follow-up is? Set yourself a task, a reminder, a notification, whatever it takes, and track this stuff somewhere. That way you're not doing extra work. It's really embarrassing to reach out to the same person multiple times with the same exact templated message. Like, government can tell you guys. They can tell if you're tailoring the email to them or if it's just a blanket marketing campaign just so that you can get eyes on your capability statement that you just created.
Right.
So keep in mind, these are humans too. I think that I'll get off my soapbox now. Any closing thoughts?
No.
Any questions from our audience? You guys sure are quiet tonight.
I think that we gave them a lot of information to think about. It's the new year.
It is the new year.
With that new year, new me. The best time to start is now, right? We don't have to worry about the past. Let's start now. Think about how much better your life's going to be 5 years from now if you start now versus in 5 years, like, I should have started then, right?
Right? Well, look at where I would have been.
Amen. You have to take the first step. You don't have to know all the steps. But I started this thing for 2025 because sometimes I get a little overwhelmed with all the things I want to do in my life.
Yeah.
And I started this concept of one project at a time. One thing at a time. Yes, I want to be a multimillionaire, right? Cool. One project at a time. How do I get there? Today, I did a brochure. Woo! Tomorrow, I'll do a course. The next day, I'll send an email. You have to not overwhelm yourself because this business, there's so much information being thrown at you and you're overwhelmed because it's all very new. Granted, we talk about it like it's nothing because we've been in this industry for so long. But if you take it one step at a time, one piece of advice at a time, you write down a checklist and you follow it one little step at a time, you will be surprised that at the end of the year, when you look at all the X's and all the things that you did, you did a lot that you didn't even notice.
See, I intermingle the fun in there too, because I have a to-do list downstairs and, it's wash windows, marry and meet Matt Damon, clean the backyard, win $1 million, so just something that you could add as you think of silly things, just keep yourself motivated. Even if it sounds silly, it might happen someday.
Speaking into existence, yeah.
Speaking into existence. So Matt Damon, if you're out there, I'm looking for you.
That's funny.
I was dark.
Right. Well, since these folks don't have any questions today, any final thoughts for our audience, ladies?
No, I think Natasha has it right. One thing at a time and start the process slowly. Document. They say the 3 Ds of procurement is document, document, document. Document it for yourself. Give yourself a little pride. Check in on the quarter. Say, okay, and this is where I'm at. So,
yeah. And I would say industries are different, right? So a lot of the best practices that we talk about comes from our experience doing. But, and I'll say this for anybody else that you guys might follow out there, because there's a lot of channels, there's a lot of SMEs and experts, right? Anytime that you get advice, always make sure that you're considering that person's experience because, like I said earlier, one industry marketing and the conversations you have and how many touch points it takes to get the meeting, those can look different industry by industry. But when you find something that works for you and you get in a groove, document that process, rinse and repeat, train others on that process and grow your team. It's not, for those of you that are, absolutely. Ask the questions. Because if you're demonstrating that you've done your homework, you've obviously done enough research to get to them, to know that they buy what you sell, you are, in a sense, already passively kind of setting yourself apart.
Right.
So just take the action. Just one action, whatever that means for you and your business and your marketing strategy. One action. Marvis does actually have a question. Let me put this up here and we'll answer this one before we head out. How could the transition to the new government cause uncertainty or change in your internal timelines? Well, that's a great question. So during capture, that is a good question. And there is a multitude of ways that our landscape in government contracting could potentially change because of the new administration. There have been talks of agencies being cut. There have been talks, you think if we do lose a lot of the government staff, that a lot of the needs will be contracted out. So that could be a positive for contractors. But as far as timelines, the timeline of the budget isn't going to change. The federal fiscal year runs from October 1 to September 30. And I can almost bet my bottom dollar that's not going to change. What we prioritize at the federal level to spend our money on, that might change. So as a strategist, once we're 6 months into the year, a lot of my time is going to be spent on capturing the new patterns of this administration to be able to determine, what is changing. Is there more being allocated here, less here? So, that's part of being a strategist, is kind of keeping your finger on the pulse of that stuff. So timelines, though, there's just still a lot of uncertainty. So we can't really answer that question. As far as your internal timelines go, one thing that I will say, and this isn't just because of the change of administration, this is just smart business, diversify. Yes, the government pays on time. They pay well in most cases, right? Except for our LPTAs, and you're bidding against someone that doesn't necessarily know what they're price something. But typically, diversification is the best way to grow your business. Government shutdowns. You never know what could happen with SAM issues. Like having a strong client base in multiple sectors is definitely advisable.
I would agree. And I was going to say that too, actually, is as you start watching which agencies are shutting down, watch where the money gets shifted. Yeah. Because at least at first, it's not going to get reduced. It's just going to get shifted to a different agency. So it's making sure, like you said, diversify your agencies and knowing who you can also start looking at as well, too.
And that's just part of the business. Honestly, it's being agile, being able to easily pivot when the market changes. That's for anything. So, and you guys have the advantage of being a small business. So it's very easy for you to pivot and switch up versus a whole organization. So just know that, keep yourself like completely aware of what's going on, mental health. Don't watch all the news, but keep an eye on like where the money's going. Be aware as a business owner, as a responsible business owner. Know that there won't be less. It just pivots to somewhere else. So if they don't get more money, someone else gets more money. But at the end of the day, we will continuously buy through federal procurement, right? The government will continuously do that. So just find out where that money's going and then, switch up, and your marketing strategy switches up, and you just kind of learn that new research in regards to that new agency that you have to target. That's all that is.
And if you are a contractor, to kind of add to that, that's a great point. If you are that contractor where you're kind of planted in one agency, they're your best customer, and you find yourself coming into this year needing to diversify, like, my only client's DOE, what do I do now? Or Department of Education, what do I do now, right? Teaming and partnering is a great strategy there. You find out where that budget went, and you go first to the primes that are already doing it with that agency, and come in through subcontracting, sort of work your way up in that agency to prime. So we'll talk more about that as the trends start to become apparent. I'm sure that I won't be able to stop myself from talking about it.
Definitely have a news report.
All right, ladies and gents, I want to thank you, Angela, for coming back with us today. Your experience is so very valued and appreciated. You are a wealth of knowledge.
Well, thank you very much. I thank you both for having me, and I thank you guys for doing this for, our audience as well too. The more you know. So
right.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I wish I could use that as part of our
the more you know.
our intro.
Pop a little rainbow. The more you know.
Yeah.
Do that. That's it.
All right, everyone. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a great week and weekend. Bye-bye.